Dear listeners and dear viewers. During the making of this next episode, there was an unfortunate technical glitch of speaker echo where my input on my guest's device kept picking up on their mic and then playing back into my device. And thus, when you hear me react or do hedgy sounds like and ah and I see and little laughs, you will hear that sound twice within a second of the original sound being played. I couldn't quite edit the small ones out in that case because quite often they're so closely interlinked with responses from my guests. However, my own statements and descriptions and questions, introduction and closing statements, I have been able to re-record, and I have swapped around the re-recordings to the originals in this full edited version. So although a lot of the echoing has been replaced, you will still hear some through most of the just general human and genuine reaction to the guests. I do hope you enjoyed this episode regardless of the errors. It was unfortunately seen on my part, and I have learnt my lesson. But please do listen, please do watch, and enjoy. Thank you for watching and listening wherever you are. And welcome to the second episode in my mini-series, The Legends of Jorvik, where I get to meet and chat to the many creatives and talented folk who put on events, displays, hold talks and theatre shows and lots more for the Jorvik Viking Festival. Inspired by so many great experiences at the Jorvik Viking Festival this year, I'm delighted to say I'm welcoming not one but two members of the Time Will Tell Theatre Company, Kathy and Simon. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Hello, my name is Kathy and I'm one half of Time Will Tell, and we've been going 13 years and we're a theatre company. This year was our second year at Jorvik. My role, I suppose, is logistics and administration and sourcing all the props and costumes and things like that, but the writing is this gentleman here.
Hello, I'm Simon Kirk, and I'm the other half of the global empire that is Time Will Tell Theatre. There's just the two of us.
Thank you, and I'm so glad you could join me on our podcast today. Time Will Tell Theatre have been performing lots of things around the UK to do with lots of different areas of history, particularly British history. And this year, and as well last year, you performed the finale show for the Jorvik Viking Festival. Last year was all about Yggdrasil, and this year was a dramatisation of a very old Norse story, the cursed sword Tyrfing. My first question is, what inspired or persuaded you to pick this particular Old Norse story of a cursed sword and its bloodshed?
That's actually a really, really easy question to answer. And I'd love to say that we'd studied for many, many years and this is something that we always wanted to do. They tell us what they want us to do. So this year they said they wanted us to focus on the story of Tyrfing, and last year they said we wanted to do something about Yggdrasil. So in a way, it's really, really great when the client says to you, this is what we want. It's actually a lot easier than you having to sort of go away and go, well, because obviously the universe of Norse mythology is so huge. There are so many stories. So I think it fits in with other stuff that they do at the festival. So I guess that was part of it.
Interesting. I never actually considered whether Jorvik gave you much direction. In which case, did you then have to do a lot of reading and research about the cursed sword Tyrfing?
Well, again, I'd love to say that my background is in Norse mythology, but if I did, I'd be lying. One of the things about our company is that we cover everything from the Stone Age through to the 1960s and all points in between. Jorvik has become a particular favourite of us. We've done Viking events before. We've done Grimsby Fellfest, where we told the story of Havelok the Dane.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got an alien area to us. I've read as much as I could, which is always a pleasure to me. I've loved reading about history and theatre since I was about 5 or 6 years old. So the first thing I did was I read all the different versions of the story that I could find, all the little bits that go off it. And essentially what you're looking for is, we have certain parameters that exist because of the nature of the work. So it has to last for an hour. We know how many actors we're allowed, and we know the space that we're going to perform in. So taking in those parameters, I then look at the story and go, what can I do with this? And the difficulty with the story, it's not a difficulty, it's interesting. I think, bearing in mind that these stories are all designed to be told by somebody live to an audience who might be familiar with bits of it, is there's a lot of repetition, which is great if you're telling a story in a mead hall, not so great if you're doing a piece of theatre. So the story of the cursed sword, as you know, is a story of a king who's out hunting one day and nothing much is going on. He spots a couple of dwarves and he manages to get between them and their home, basically traps them, and says the only way you can get back to your home is if you make me a sword. And they have to agree. So they make him a sword, and he sort of says, this is what I want the sword to be. This is what I want the sword to be like. And they go, yeah, we can do that. And at the same time, they also put a curse on the sword, saying this is what it's going to really do. And from that, that's where the story sort of begins. So from that, it then goes through a series of 3 curses, which is the usual number in most stories. So it's just a question of how you're going to do that. How are you going to make each of these very violent stories just a little bit different from the last violent story?
I think this year helped because we'd already established some of those parameters. We already knew that they like to have 8 actors. The 8 actors was the ideal number for that space. We knew the space and what it was like to work in it, and it also helped because the lighting, we shouldn't take, the lighting company that they use and the pyrotechnics that they use, all of that kind of stuff, the sound, they're phenomenal. And so this was our second time of working with them. So last year we were a little bit more, it was a lot more, it was newer, we'd not done it before, we didn't know whether it would work, and so this year it was easier because it is a challenging story in that it's mostly just fighting, and an element of that is, after the second you're all a bit like, okay, do we have to go through this again? So I'm bringing in all those elements that you mentioned, the humanity of it. We want to, so Simon had found lots of there's other different bits that you've glued onto it, to make it the story arc there.
And what I always look for with something that lasts for an hour, it's outdoors, you don't know what the weather's going to do. So you're trying to hold on to people's attention. So the first thing I do is I break it down into sections, and I like each section to end with a phrase. So this year the phrase was, and so it goes. And I love that because that's what happens in stories. It's a story, and so it goes. It's as it is written, whatever. The other thing that about making it episodic is you want to connect it. And I'd read about, when we were doing Yggdrasil, I'd featured the Norns in that because they nourish Yggdrasil is one of the things they do. But I thought it would be really good to have them as the kind of connecting theme, that every time this curse does what it's supposed to do, the Norns can move out and take over. The Norns are fascinating. They're so, as characters, they're so interesting. Also, in a story that's going to be very, very boys hitting each other, it's great to have something that's more female focused. But I really like the idea of the Norns, because they said, we said at the beginning, we set the whole thing up and we say, your fate's predestined. The Norns know it. When you're born, at the moment you scream when you're born, the Norns are there, and they have a thread, and that thread's cut to that thread's going to run to a certain length, and when it's cut, that's it, game over. And it's so the Norns know your fate, but you decide what happens within that, because the story of Tyrfing or Tyrfing is a story of people making choices. I think is that you if you're given, and it's that choice really that at the moment is incredibly resonant. If you were given absolute power to do whatever you wanted to do, with the threat of this thing that can destroy or kill anything, how would you use it? What would you do?
Thank you. That's a really good point about using the Norns to give a female voice to the performance. I, for one, certainly think that a lot of the female characters of the mythology and the pantheon, not just the goddesses, but kind of the giants, the vulva, the Norns themselves, we know names and pieces, but there's so much more to that we don't know. They lack a certain volume of definition compared to the male characters, and that could be just because historically these stories were stories for a long time, and they were written centuries after Christianization presented a taboo, almost like a barrier between what was known and what is known. And through the male gaze and the act of male scribes, a lot of the female voice representation has been lost. And for those who are viewing this on YouTube and listening on Spotify and wherever online, just to help you understand the challenge that this wonderful theatre company faced, they performed in a circular piece of land. I'm not going to say meters how long because I can never get it right. But it's, if you look on Google Maps, it's right in front of the Yorkshire Castle Museum in the centre of York, and there is a tree in the middle. And it's also got some other buildings around it, including Clifford's Tower directly behind it, and a car park and a main road. So it is a very congested performance space, but it was wonderfully done. They did an amazing, almost like triangular performance zones. There were 3 zones all around the circle where something was going on, and because they didn't put up anything around the tree, people could see straight across the circle and always see through it, and it was wonderfully done. And the Norns themselves, I was very impressed with how they were costumed, they were dressed, because quite often when you read about the Norns, you read about them as women and being particular ages. There was Verandi, Skuld and Erd, past, present and future, usually old, middle-aged and young. But these Norns, these were dramatically simplified, they were masked and ornate, or not quite ornate, they were mystically robed, and they used staves or staffs in a very dramatic, almost magical manner. And I really respected that. I really respected that interpretation of them. It gave them that agelessness, because they are a being above and beyond the gods, above and beyond the giants. They were there from the beginning and they will be there at the end, because they know and weave the end of all things, effectively. And I really, really like that. It certainly brings a point, of course. Kathy, how did it go with costuming? Because I, as an audience member, because there was no stage, there was no screen, the actors that you had involved had to get changed into their costumes and outfits, not fully undressed, kind of like tops off and tops on, or robes on, cloaks off, that kind of thing. Right around the base of this tree, that was their changing area. So how did that come about in planning and operation?
Yes, we I do bring many, because we don't have there's not a huge budget for us to have. Some productions might have weeks of rehearsal. We have the fighters get to fight for a couple of days of rehearsals, and that's choreographed specifically for each show. But we only get a day the day before, so I bring loads of options just in case, because yeah, they do need to be able to get in, and sometimes we might have a vision and we like that idea, and we'll go. We've got an amazing costume hire place in Suffolk. I'm we're both East Anglian based, but the store's in Norfolk, but this costume place in Suffolk is phenomenal, and she takes in lots of different she makes her own, but she also takes in lots of different like past productions, films and things. So she has a huge store, doesn't she? And we go along, and you have ideas of what you want the characters to look like, and then we have a look about the logistics of whether they'll be able to get in and out of them quick enough. And we had a long talk about hiding that, but as soon as you build a structure in that space, then someone can't see. So you need to be able to keep it open, because we thought about, we have thought, and lots of people have said to us, why didn't you screen that off? Why didn't you build somewhere where they could change without being watched? And that's it. Someone then somewhere can't see. And I personally, as an audience member, would have quite enjoyed to be able to see that as well. I mean, the idea obviously is that the drama detracts, so you don't look at it. It is nice to acknowledge it, and once you've seen it happen once, then you just ignore it anyway. We're very good at being selective about what we do and don't see. But yes, I mean that those quick changes would have happened even if they'd happened out of sight. So it's a kind of way of acknowledging that it's a skill, and there are many characters involved. It's a big space, isn't it? And it's a bit, and the audience, because of the pyrotechnics, the audience have to be a space again away from us. So it's quite a challenge. And we also mustn't forget the reenactment groups that are involved. Because the space is so big. It's it does work with 8, but it calls for more in the cast. And we're really fortunate that the reenactment group were happy to come along, be directed. They actually really enjoyed it. They do enjoy it. So and so we don't have a huge amount of time to rehearse with them either. But they, they're sitting around the edges and then choreographing them coming in, and them coming into the drama and then fading out again. We're really fortunate to work with such great groups that are so keen to support us in creating the piece. So yeah.
So we had two groups that worked with us. Yorfus Hall, who we met last year, who worked with us last year, who are just brilliant. They will do anything. And last year they did anything in the rain.
Yes, because it's
and Reggie Anglorum, who are a group that we've had the privilege of working with on a number of occasions. They are brilliant as well. And I'm sure there are probably some people in there from other groups as well. But they the space, because it's not quite circular, they call it in York, they call it the York Eye. So it's more like an ovoid shape with a tree in the middle. So last year when we did Yggdrasil, it's perfect. It's a play about a tree. There's a tree in the middle. They lit the tree up. It looked fantastic. And everything focuses back inwards. I decided very early on that the staging that we could use, again, has to fall into certain parameters. It can't be fixed, because they use the eye space for other things, especially on the Saturday afternoon. There's Viking games and there's a sort of Viking battle there. So we don't have access to it. Plus, we are next to York County Court or City Court, which is in use Thursday and Friday. So we can't do anything that might impinge on the wheels of justice. So really, we get very limited time. So my idea was to have 3 drum risers positioned like the ends of the props on a propeller. That gives you a little bit of elevation. And if you position them correctly, it means that you can always see something going on, just raised up.
Thank you. That's a really good explanation. And a very valid point about Sight of Line. Because it's a circular performance area, the audience is therefore gathered in a large circle, and so forth it makes sense to enable everyone to see from whatever side you're on. And I certainly, as a member of the audience, I noticed it, but then I didn't notice it because the way you stage the drama in 3 zones around the circle around the tree was very easily distraction, and because you had people moving from point to point as well, your eyes were never always, oh, what they're doing now. But I did notice, of course, like everyone else did, when the lights go down at the end of each dramatic arc. So how did everyone adapt or learn how to not only make their way to the tree in complete darkness, but then get changed into the right costume in the complete darkness?
The changing in darkness, we finished each section with a blackout, which essentially just gave the actors time to run back, change, and then we'd start up again. The other thing is that the whole thing is driven by a narrated soundscape. So I write the script, we record the narration, and our composer, Johnny Dyer, then adds in music and sound effects. He's absolutely brilliant. We collaborated with him on half a dozen projects at least, and he's just fantastic. He really gets what we're trying to do. So with that, and with the fantastic work by the lighting company, Fantastic Fireworks, who do the pyros, but also bring in a lighting company, all of those aspects together make it, I guess, what we're trying to do is we say at the beginning, come into the realm of myth. That's what we say, this is what this world is like. It's a bit crazy, there's lots of conflict, nothing is what it seems. Enjoy. And that's where the story sort of starts.
I have to say, as an audience member, that the music from Johnny Dyer was phenomenal. It really set the atmosphere, the environment, the vibe, the mood, the tone. Everyone was like, oh, this is different. We're not in a normal environment now. This is very, very different. And of course, we could see a few people out in the area where they were performing, didn't know who they were going to be, what were they going to do. And then when we hear your voices, and it is your 2 voices, yours Simon and yours Kathy, narrating, of course, Simon's magnificent script, come over the loudspeakers and echo around this, not quite an amphitheatre, but it's got that kind of environment and that space. It really does transport everyone to a time that is not now, that is also not in the past either. It's almost somewhere else entirely. And I quickly caught up on the pattern, the narrative pattern of "and so it goes." And my mum, who's my loyal Jorvik companion, turned to me and said, how do you know they're going to say that? I says, because it's a pattern, it's a beat. It's poetic, because a lot of your script was poetic. A lot of it has rhyme to it and rhythm and a beat, and that fits with a pattern. But yeah, it was, I mean, the quality of your voices too, and I mean this as a compliment, they're ageless, if not timeless. They were neither young nor old, kind of, they haven't, it's a really hard quality to explain without sounding insulting and saying you both sound, because you don't sound old, but then equally you weren't sounding young. And I liked how it was both a female voice and a male voice, because A, the female made me think of the Norns, but B, the male voice almost made me think of, well, if Tyrfing had a voice, could it be male? And I salute you, Simon. Your writing, it was so evocative, engaging, emotive, and it really drew me in and kept me hooked, not just on what I was seeing, but on what I was hearing, because I've rewatched / listened to this because it's available on YouTube. The link will stand below, dear viewers and listeners. And it sounds very much like a wonderful skald in your ear telling a wonderful tale. So thank you so much for that wonderful script.
the style of it, the style of the style of the writing is, I've read as many sagas as I can read. I've also always loved sort of Viking and Saxon poetry, and there's a very, very weird way about the rhyming structure of that, and it's I really like it. It's like you half discover things, then a bit later on you go, oh yeah, I see why that was that rhyme connected to that. And I think when you're telling a story, it's a really, really good way of punctuating in the same way that Shakespeare does exactly the same thing. He sort of punctuates with words that echo backwards and forwards. It's quite tricky when you're trying to do it. It takes a bit of time to get into to sort of drop into it. But I was trying to give it a sense of this language is not quite our language. But obviously you've got to recognize that Jorvik Viking Festival, you've got people from all over the world, and perhaps not necessarily with English as their first language. Plus, you've got to be able to understand it anyway. Yeah, I really enjoyed writing. I mean, and so it goes. You have to keep. It did get to a point with that where I had to get the Google rhyming dictionary up. So what else rhymes with goes? Suppose, knows. And the nose. No, I can't use that. The nose. What's that? So you do end up having to cheat a bit, but I really enjoy writing it. I really enjoy it. The other great thing is that one of the good things about our company is that we work with the same actors a lot. So even if they're not actually speaking words, I have their voices in my head. So as I'm writing, I'm kind of going, oh yeah, that's what they do. And of course, Kathy is my go-to for any narration. Last year when we did Yggdrasil, it was great. It's a story about a sort of female entity, and they actually said that was one of the few things that they said. They said we'd like to have a woman's voice doing the narration. It's going perfect, great.
Yeah, sadly we only have the audio of that. We don't have the visuals of that one, but yeah, it's good. It's well written. We're incredibly proud of both of the performances. Yggdrasil was challenging because it literally rained, and it didn't actually rain. We only did it once as well, whereas the Cursed Sword we did twice, so we had 2 runs at it.
2 good nights.
And we had no rain. But Yggdrasil, it rained heavily before it. The actual hour of the show there wasn't any rain, but that site we were wet because we were outside when it rained, and the site just became a mud bath. So it was quite challenging we had stilts in that as well, so for the stilt walker it was quite challenging
for the fighters.
Well, actually I found it challenging just walking. I don't know how they did the fighting.
There was a moment where Louise, one of our fighters, went down, and this is the first time she worked with us, and she went down, and there was just this huge splash of water as she hit the ground, and everybody sort of went, wow. You know how you sort of you're not quite sure, is this brilliant, is this a brilliantly planned, contrived moment, or has she just fallen completely on her face and she's probably knocked herself out? She went down, splash, and then got up again, and people just like, wow. And that was the moment that people were trying to get the pictures of. Those sorts of little, those are the little moments that you remember. She was absolutely soaked. She had the best time.
Yes, she did enjoy it, but challenge afterwards, getting the costumes clean.
Gosh, yes. Because we were talking about the Norns. Because I sort of, in my mind, I had an idea about what I wanted them to look like, and I didn't want them to be recognizable. I didn't want it to be about their faces. So we used masks, which we've done quite a lot actually, and but also I wanted them to have sort of like cloaks trailing out behind them, and a sense of just size, like they were living shadows. And these are all great ideas to have, until you're standing outside and the wind starts blowing, and then all these lovely ideas. Oh, we could use really light material, and it would just billow around, and it would look fantastic. And not if the wind's blowing in the wrong way, it doesn't. It just looks a bit weird. And
it's a nightmare.
you've got performers being blown across the stage, trying desperately to hold on to their costumes. And when they take their costumes off, the costumes blow away. So there's all these sorts of things that you have to, when you're doing something like this outdoors, you have to take into consideration.
That's a really good point about the cloaks. I can see how it would have been beautiful as a concept, but didn't work out practicality, especially if the wind, because you can't control it, changes direction. And certainly me as an audience member, it's only afterwards that I think about how you did this or how you might have done that. And the fact that you try the cloak and then learned it didn't work, especially if the wind blows, and what if it rains? Does it trail and get soggy? Or if it snows? We can have snow in February. Will your actors be shivering as they're trying to put on their costumes? It just shows the level of thought, preparation, creativity, skill and talent, all that you and others put together to make this one event of many that form the Jorvik Viking Festival attract such an audience and are so engaging and thought-provoking. And it's why I want to do this mini-series, The Legends of Jorvik, to showcase the talent and the skills that are used and recognise the effort and hopefully honour your pride that you should have in shows like this, because I am grateful the weather gods were good for you this year compared to last year.
The other thing is that, in common with Fantastic Fireworks, Johnny, Regia, and Yorfus Hall, anybody who'd done it last year coming back to doing it this year, we had an idea of what we could do, of the potential of it, but obviously you want to improve on it. So Fantastic Fireworks had some ideas about they had more of an idea about the lighting, because when you can sit and talk to somebody in a meeting and say, well, there's 8 of us, we run around a lot, just we're using this area, try and light that. So we wanted to have, for when the dwarves are in Svartalheim and they're at their forges, we wanted lights inside the drum risers shining up into their faces. So that was a new thing that we put in. And it's a very simple thing, but you have to have a cable to the light. So you then got to put this in such a way that it doesn't impinge on anybody
fighting over it
or anything like that. We don't want to create a trip hazard. So we sort of dealt with that.
Well, and also that in the same space, you've got a battle that's happened 2 hours beforehand. So whatever you can't, you either have to have it so they can work in the same space with it, or you have to lay it down and deal, and you don't have the time really to build. You can't build a set in that time. So there's lots of. I mean, the weather.
We've thought about. I mean, one of the things about doing it again is that it does make you go, do you know what? I wonder if we could do this. I mean, the first year, Yggdrasil tree, you've got an ovoid shape with a big tree in the middle. And last year, there was a fence around the bottom of the tree. So we went, oh, that's all right, because we can hang the costumes on the fence. It all sort of looks in keeping, but it keeps the focus on Yggdrasil. The tree was lit all the way through. So that was, again, that was great. We could see what we were doing. And this year, obviously, we didn't want the tree to be the focus. It's mentioned in passing, but it's not the star of the show anymore, because that was the thing about doing it before. Have the tree as the star of the show, and we're just kind of minions running around underneath it. This year, no light on the tree. We didn't know that the fence had been removed, so we managed to get some.
We got some Harris fencing.
We got some Harris fencing, which we put around it, and then covered with stuff so it didn't look like we'd put Harris fencing around the tree.
Yes.
We still had the 3 drum risers, but I wanted one of them to be a funeral beer, so we had one of them was a double. So that somebody could lie down, because you can't really lie down on just the one. So we had 2 that the lids opened on so that there was light underneath, and one that was a double drum riser so that you could lie somebody down on it. And the fireworks, again, I was trying to work out, could we get fireworks into the show? Because last year, all the pyrotechnics were right at the end. So you had the show and then they did blah, 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 blah at the end, which was great. And Johnny wrote this fantastic brilliant piece of music. But you know, when you've got these things there, you think, well, I wonder if we can use it before. And Fantastic Fireworks were very, very into the idea of using it earlier as well. So obviously the pyrotechnics are set up on the very perimeter of the space, as far away from the actors and from the audience as is possible, so that there's no safety issues. Last year, the museum let us use 6 or 8 benches to put the reenactors on, and this was a really important thing that sort of happened organically, but it meant that the reenactors had somewhere to sit down rather than sitting on the wet floor, and it almost got them out of the way, and it was a bit like they were part of the audience watching what was going on. But obviously those benches were very close to the pyrotechnic line, so we could put pyros in, but I had to direct a scene so at the end of it, all our friends from Regia and Yorfus Hall came into the centre and were around the tree, so that when all this stuff went off, they were miles away.
Yes.
You know, you're then really paranoid about everybody understands that. So you're going through these things again and again. Luckily, I mean, I direct, but on the day, what tends to happen is that the directing is taken over, or is split between 3 of us. So Kathy also directs, which she's brilliant. Our fight director, Matt Wood, is also directing, and because the actors have worked with us so many times, they throw in their sort of their tuppence halfpenny worth as well. So it's quite a collaborative thing, and the reenactors the same. They just did such a good job this year, such a good job. Because I asked a lot more of them this year, because I could last year with Yorfus Hall, I got a sense of what they could do, and they loved it and they wanted to do more. So this year we gave them more to do.
I'm glad you've mentioned the reenactors, because I've been going to Jorvik Festival since 2006 with the odd year off for various reasons, up to 2020 when that was my longest consecutive number of years not attending because of life reasons and logistics, because trains aren't always reliable in my side of West Yorkshire. But I remember, like, the earliest finales I've seen, they were often great battle reenactments. I remember the earliest one I saw featured an acquaintance that me and Kathy have, which is Nigel Amos, and he's a member of the Reggae Anglorum reenactment group, which, as you mentioned, you've been working with for this one and last one potentially. But I remember first learning that Nigel started doing a lot of the script writing for a lot of the more narrative elements that started coming through. So instead of just showing the active combat episodes of history, they would look at the narratives behind those events with the characters and the figures of history. I remember going to a great banquet in 2018 or 2017, and Nigel Amos was part of that event, and he performed brilliantly as a skald, praising the sons of Ragnar, Uber, Halfdan, and Sven, Snake in the Eye, that kind of thing. And it was really good, and I got to know him a bit more personally then. And then, of course, I know we got to write on other plays, parts of Jorvik finale, and of course the one in 2020 I was due to go to, and I know that he was looking forward to that one because that was about Ibn Fadlan, the Islamic scholar who encountered Vikings, many Rus Vikings, and wrote quite a bit about them in his own scripts and travel logs. But that sadly got cancelled because the storm came over and started blowing all the fences over and all the lighting out, which of course was a big health and safety hazard. So it got cancelled, and then of course pandemic happened, and then it's been a long time coming since the finales have been as big as they have been, I think, although I haven't been to any recently until yours this year. But I guess the other question is, now that you've done 2, do you think you'll be around to do a 3rd in 2026? Have Jorvik told you anything?
No, we don't know. They are, I mean, it must take them a long time to plan the whole festival. So we won't know anything, I think, till midsummer, maybe. I mean, the very first year they were even later, weren't they? It was more like October time when we got asked. But I think this year just gone, I think it was mid to late summer when they got in touch. So we'd love to do it again. We think sort of 3 times would be nice, wouldn't it? A third crack at the whip would be lovely. I know the team really enjoy it, because it is a challenging week because the weather can be horrible that week. And after the first year, I thought none of them would ever want to come back because it was so the weather was so miserable. But they were all keen to do it again. So we would love to.
Yeah.
But it all depends on them, and then their budget and all of that kind of, and their themes. And I mean, Nigel, as you say, has been involved in it forever, and he was in the show. I don't know whether you knew.
Yes, I did notice Nigel was in, but only after the event, I must admit. And it's only because, of course, I follow him on Facebook as a friend. He posted photos of himself playing one of the dwarves, working in Svartalheim. And he, of course, tags you in it. And it's like, oh, Nigel, would you mind just possibly putting me in touch with Time Will Tell Theatre? I would love to talk to them about their amazing performance. And here we are.
He's a very good dwarf, is Nigel.
He's also a very good Boulder the Beautiful.
He was very good Boulder the Beautiful.
I can imagine that.
He died well.
So yeah, I mean, I should imagine he'll be involved, and hopefully we will. We'd really like to.
The thing is that we've worked with Nigel for years. I mean, Nigel and I have done loads and loads of projects over the years together, and I've always known about his involvement in Jorvik. And again, he's one of the people who's been involved in that right from the get-go. And when he was the first person we contacted when we were approached by the festival, to say, we've just been asked about this, what do you think? And he was very, very enthusiastic. And of course, right from the word go, we wanted him to be on board. We wanted him to be part of the company. I don't think he knew what he was letting himself in for, because it is, as we've sort of said, within the hour, you've got 8 performers, but in order to make that large space look busy, you're either on doing something, or you are off getting changed and ready to run on and do something.
You have about 6 characters each, I think, 5 or 6 characters each.
Plus, you are wrangling the reenactors into the right places. In some ways, for actors, it's great because you don't have any lines to learn. So that would normally be what was occupying the most of your brain. You don't have that, but you have to really listen. Because in a way, you don't have that internal clock of saying, when I hear that word, I know that I'm about to say this. So you have to really, really focus on what's going on. And I mean, you end up with people throwing on one costume and then going, no, wrong costume, throw on. No. Because you're, and we don't get much rehearsal time. We have the day before, but we can't do a rehearsal as you would normally do on that sort of constriction. You'd want to have everything in place, but we can't do that because we can only rehearse during the day, which means we can't have the lights and we can't have the sound because the courts are in session.
Yes.
So it's very much a walkthrough, and of course we don't have the reenactors either, because they've got jobs. They're sensible people. They paid attention at school. So the rehearsals are really hard because you get a little time to just go, here's your costume, here's your next one, here's your next one, here's your next one, here's your next one, here's your next one. Right, let's take all that outside. So just get that sorted out so you know what order you're doing things in. Right, here are the 3 drum risers. We're using this one, then this one, then this one, then this one. Now let's block the first bit. Now let's block the second bit. It takes a lot longer. It always takes longer than you think it's going to take. And yeah, I'm always amazed at the skill of the performers to actually get to the evening and go, yep, I know what I'm doing. Right, let's get out there and do it.
Yeah.
All for an hour.
But hopefully next year. Fingers
Yeah.
crossed. We hope so anyway.
We'd like to.
Now that you've both explained so well the limitations and the challenges the entire cast faced in terms of logistics around the space, working with the monologue, the narration, getting the timing right, working with the lighting or the lack of lighting when it goes dark, um, I just take my hat off to all of them because they did everything so smoothly, so easily it looked. And yes, although they might not have had lines, the drama that they used in their bodies was brilliant. I remember watching with some gripped attention the silent discussion, or so to say argument, between Hervor and her ghostly father. I say ghostly, he's a Draugr, an undead father, about taking his sword from his burial mound, and from his arm gestures and her arm gestures and the postures. And of course, thinking back to the dwarves, which Nigel was one of them, they walked with such a different type of swagger and step and a hunch or a limp. It really made them feel distinctly different just on sight visually with those simple moves to the rest of the cast, who are of course playing as humans. And I have to say, whoever thought of doing the backlit orange inside those prop boxes to turn it into a forge for when they were making Tyrfing, it was stunningly simple. It captured the moment, the mood, the atmosphere, all within that small space. They didn't need a big setup for a forge. They just needed that, and it worked really, really well.
I think the dwarf bits, they really enjoyed it because it was Matt and Nigel, wasn't it?
No, it's Tom and Nigel.
Tom and Nigel.
Yeah, and Tom's a regular at
Yeah.
the festival as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, they enjoyed it.
Yeah, they really get being dwarves.
I mean, because it has to be big, because the stage is
Yeah.
so big. You have to be over the top on whatever you're doing,
Yeah.
because everyone needs to be able to see it. So yeah,
Lots of big gestures.
yeah.
And that's why we have the stilt walking in it as well, just to give us a bit of scale. So last year, I can't remember the name of the character. Who's the giant that the world is made from?
Oh, Ymir.
Ymir, thank you. Yes, it was. So Tom played Ymir last year. We have a absolutely brilliant costume that was made for us a few years ago for
Like a wild man costume. Yeah.
That's perfect for it. So we used that. But yeah, as soon as I was going through it, I thought the ghost of Hervor's father, that's the moment to have that in. Although Tom last year with all the rain, it got to a point where he was going, it really is now. I've better stop raining, otherwise it gets dangerous. Because we had Ymir was killed, and he had to fall and then be caught by the actor. So those kind of moments, yeah, it was quite the thing. This year he didn't. He could walk on and walk off, which was great. We used more torches this year as well.
Flaming
torches. So we tried to introduce.
outside.
Yeah, we tried to introduce that, which again, there's a very weird dissonance between what is going on in my head and what eventually happens in the York Eye. That always makes me laugh, because you have to sort of go. I'm sure Kathy will back me up. You have to go, this is the ideal. This is what we want. But we're not going to get that. So this is what we can have. Let's make this the best of what we can have.
Yes, because in an ideal world, you'd have stage crew and you'd have someone else lighting the flames for you,
Yeah.
and having it there to give you as soon as. But because we don't have that, so we had to think about the logistics of how to get all the flames lit, and who was going to light the flames, and who was fire trained, and all that kind of stuff, and how to Poor old Louise. She enjoyed it though. She liked having her own flame. But there is, to look that magnificent, there is work to be done behind the scenes.
That was, I think, one of my favourite scenes, the Hervor scene. Again, it's so brilliant to have a female character like that in it, because otherwise it is just lots of kings and berserkers killing each other. And having that character, and again, it's, as I said, it's about choice. Having that character come from nothing, from being a slave to being a shield maiden, to then going to get her father's sword and actually claiming it from her dead father's ghost, and then having got it, what do you do? Because her father says to her, if you take this, there'll be trouble. And she goes, no, I want it. Oh, there'll be really big trouble. Your sons will kill each other, and it'll, and whatever. And still she takes it away, and there's that lovely bit where she tries to sort of, she marries, she has 2 sons. One of them's like his grandfather, a bit of a wild person. The other one's more like his father, a more gentle, considered person. And you're kind of going, this is what I love about the Viking myths. You're going, oh, come on, this has got to end. This is going to end badly. Especially when you add in a sword that if you draw it out of its sheath, it has to taste blood. That's part of the curse. Come on. And you give that sword to your son, and you don't say, by the way, just a few little pointers about this sword. It's cursed, so don't do anything with it. Just have it there. And I wish there'd been. One of the things that tends to happen in myths is in Norse myths is that something happens, the story moves on, and you then want the backstory of what did Hervor do? Her sons, one of her sons killed the other one. What did she do? And we don't know. It's not in the story. What was her reaction? We know that her son almost sort of went voluntarily into exile. So I suggested that he broke his mum's heart, because he was the reason he got given the sword was that he was the favourite. But Louise was so thrilled to be playing a shield maiden. She does a lot of combat stuff.
She's a stunt. Performer.
Stunt performer, so she does a lot of combat stuff.
Yeah.
And it was really good to have that story involved.
Louisa did amazing in that role as Hervor, the shield maiden. You could tell she knew how to use the sword quite adaptly, quite well, quite cleverly, quite strategically, for the purpose of it as being a weapon. It wasn't just a prop, it was her weapon. And I can still distinctly remember there was a sequence of little combats between the reenactors around the circle, and she had gained victory over one, then she walked around a bit, fought another one, gained victory over that. And at the same time, others were fighting, and yet they all kind of like rotated, and yet met in pairs, fought, and then rotated, then met in pairs and fought. And it was really cleverly done. I was really impressed with that as a performance combat piece.
If you've got 4 fighters, then you can't. They have to sort of just do fight, move, fight the other one, move, go back to fighting that one, move. So that everybody gets to see it. You have to keep moving it around, otherwise I think it would be too small. The reenactors, we gave them more fighting to do. I mean, King Svaflami, when he was just knocking them down one after the other, that was it was a highlight for them. So when you almost don't line up, but almost like you're in a line, and you step forward, and he just. There was one. Do you remember the really big guy?
Yeah, and he does some kind of amateur boxing or something.
Yeah, he does. It's huge. I mean, and you know that they're all quite huge. This huge guy. And he said, "Oh, can you just bop me on the head?" And Will went, "Yeah," because he's got a foamy sort of hammer thing. Because the weapons we used for the sword fighting are all live blades. But for that, we had a couple of things that were more like LARP style things. So he went, yeah, sure. Bopped him on the head, and this guy went down like a felled tree. And I watched that twice, and each time I watched it, it just delighted me. Because you see, when you get moments like that, you see the other reenactors go, right. I can do more with what I'm doing, and they all sort of G each other along, and I love that about the show as well. People are exemplars to each other; they encourage each other. More audience participation. That's what I'd like to get.
They are quite long way away, though, aren't they?
And we can't. We spend ages on the performance day saying to everybody, you can't come into the arena anywhere you want. There's a gate. You have to use that, so you never ever cross over the pyrotechnics. You're always coming in there. You're always going out there, and it's a bit annoying because it means that you're the far end away from where you're staying. But you always do that for safety's sake.
Yeah, so we couldn't get the audience in. But
so we wouldn't be able to get the audience in. We couldn't involve them that directly. We try to get them to cheer. That's what I think I'd do maybe next year, is think about.
We've struggled to hear. I do feel like we're a long way away from the audience when we're performing.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
Well, I can confirm to you both that I was cheering excessively loud, or as loud as I could reasonably, with other people immediately beside me in the audience, because I wanted someone in that group of you around that tree to know how much I loved that show. And the pyrotechnics, of course, they were a real treat. I was not expecting them. I know in past finales, particularly with battles, have had huge fireworks display afterwards. I thought, well, they're not doing it this one because it's a play, but then whoosh, 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 fire, huge sparklers, and the music that went with it. Oh, it really sealed it off really nicely. And I think everyone in that circular arena, we may have been far away, but we connected across that distance through the music, the staging, the acting, and of course the writing of that wonderful script.
The weird thing is that it's an hour, but because once you press the button for the soundtrack, that's it. There's no going back. The soundtrack is what it is. An hour later, it stops. And the weird thing is that hour just goes.
It does.
Which is a good thing, because obviously the audience have to stand. So, we couldn't make it longer. We have to be there. Yeah, to think of that.
Yeah.
Well, now that you've got Jorvik too under your belt, are you doing anything else Norse related in terms of performances, shows, events coming up soon?
This year, I don't think we have anything other Viking-y.
We have a bit.
Do we?
We do, which you won't know yet.
Oh.
We've been asked to perform as part of the Hanseatic Festival.
Oh yes. Okay.
In King's Lynn, which is fantastic. King's Lynn, when it was in its medieval pomp, was one of the most important ports in England, and it was a part of the Hanseatic League, the League of merchant towns and ports dotted all around the Baltic, but further afield as well. And I've just started writing it, and I've put in a scene between a Lynn salt trader and a marauding Viking who's a little disappointed that when he arrives in Lynn, there isn't the kind of gold and silver that he's looking for, and has a long discussion with the Lynn salt trader, who explains to him that salt is even more valuable. It's much more important. And I think, I don't remember what I called the Viking. I know what his nickname was. I think it's Ivar the Gullible. So he comes on all to so that's a little bit of Viking.
Yeah, I don't know that we have got any other Vikings this year.
No,
there's a sort of I don't know whether you know. There's a festival of history in Lincoln that happens this weekend coming. Well, I say it like it's been happening forever. This is the second year of the festival, and we're actually being Victorians, but there are Vikings there.
Yeah.
The festival is through. I think it's just at the top. Have you been to Lincoln? So the castle,
not personally, no.
Right, but the castle's at the top of the hill, as is some of the old bits of the city around the cathedral. And I think that is mostly where the festival happens. 90% of it is free, but the castle does have a paywall, and so in there is a big show which we're part of there. But there are Vikings outside, and there is rumour that it might be more Viking focused next year.
Yeah.
But that relies on it is a council run event, so it does rely on the council running it. It does, and so hopefully with the nice weather, this year will be successful enough for them to consider running it again next year. So we have that. but I think we're a bit Viking short, because
Yeah, I mean,
Sorry.
the last time we did
I think the last big
Viking stories was for Lincolnshire.
we did some Viking stories, and then Grimfell Festival, which was a
Grimsby,
few
yeah,
years
yeah.
ago, with we did that with Nigel.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have the festival coming this weekend, where we are playing a mixture of Victorian historians and a Victorian theatre company. So we're working together to put on a historical show. So we have a very typical argument, really, in that how do you make history entertaining? So the historians, of course, want to put facts in and make it factually accurate. The theatricals want to make it theatrically exciting. So, which is an ongoing conversation that happens today. So that's a good sort of running comment about performing history. So that's then. Then we're at Lincoln a few times this year, but our big event, I suppose, is Illuminated, isn't it?
Yeah.
So every year, for feels like forever, a long time, we have been at Whitby Abbey for the October half term. So that's our next big, massive, like lots of people projects, I think.
We've got lots of
Lots
other
of smaller projects,
which we really enjoy doing. So we're earlier on this year.
Sorry, my watch.
Earlier on this year, in February, we did a piece for Holocaust Memorial Day about the liberation of the concentration camp at Belsen. And we've been invited back to do that again by JW3, who are a charity who specialise in Holocaust education. We're at the National Archives. They've got a new exhibit in London, in Kew in London. They've got this new exhibition about espionage, where
the MI5
files that they've been given access to. We went to the opening. It is brilliant, and we are going to be providing a couple of characters for that for a couple of family days.
We have an ongoing project, a performance of Dracula at Whitby. Also, we go to Whitby during the year.
Home from home.
Yeah, so Dracula it's a three-handed version of Dracula. It's in its 14th year. We think
14th or 15th. We're not quite sure.
Year.
It's like the mousetrap of outdoor theatre.
Yes, it is, and that's on all the way through the summer holidays.
Yeah.
But the Illuminated is very similar. It's similar in its epicness as the Jorvik project, in that we work with a lighting and sound company, and they light. They're commissioned to light the ruins, and then they work with us to create. It's a promenade piece, so you move as an audience. And so we have 4 sort of spaces that they come to and watch the performance. Again, Johnny writes the sound for that, the soundscape, but it's live, performed live, so we're acting in it. And he comes up with us and does all the sound around and coordinates sound effects and stuff. And yes, so that's it's an ongoing story for those who come every year. So there is a through line from one year to the next, but that is not the main leader. There's always Dracula's always involved, but it's not necessarily the Dracula story.
It's not. It's the. I managed to sort of define it, didn't I? A couple of days. It's a bit like Marvel Comics. You are in the Dracula universe.
Yes.
The characters are in the Dracula universe, but it's not Dracula. So you're not gonna. It's not. We're not telling the story of Dracula as we do in the Sun. It's always based around Victorian, the classic Victorian Edwardian stories of horror, dread, weirdness, that sort of thing, which I read all the time, and I just sort of percolate down my own little ideas about how, with that, to make it real for the audience, we always personify the audience as a particular thing. So one year there might be refugees fleeing to the safety of Whitby Abbey from a vampire plague. The year after, they might be coming to Whitby Abbey to seek the cure from the waters of the Abbey Pond or something like that. Every year there's something different. Or there might all be vampire hunters who've been gathered under instruction to hunt out vampires or whatever.
It's a nighttime show, obviously. And we have similar sized audiences. Actually, I don't know how many Jorvik had, but we can have up to 3,000 an evening, isn't it? Something ridiculous,
Yeah.
isn't it? So
Wow.
We did
yeah,
a show twice.
we did a show twice through the evening. So that's our big focus towards the end of the year, and the summer is full of lots of variety of Victorian and medieval
And archaeological.
and archaeological projects throughout the summer.
Well, the thing is, there are certain things that we're interested in, and then we're asked to do something. We think it'll either be, oh wow, I've always wanted to do that, or oh, I don't know anything about that. Great. So the thing at the National Archives about spies and espionage, we did a play last year called Operation Fortitude about this to celebrate the 80th anniversary of D-Day at Dover Castle. There was a whole operation based around Dover to try to trick the German army into thinking the invasion was going to happen between Dover and Calais, rather than where it did happen between Southampton and Normandy. So we wrote a play about that, and that got me very interested in spies and espionage and deception, and I've kept that interest going. So yes, who knows where we get taken next? We just have no idea at all. We get, the other thing is, we get asked about projects that then don't quite
come off.
But so we do a lot of work on them, which is fine, because that's what we do. So we were approached about doing a project at Stonehenge, which is fascinating. It hasn't sort of come to anything. But the other thing is, it's never say never. You never know if something goes away and then suddenly comes back again. You think, oh yes, that was we were talking about that. So watch this space. Only time will tell.
And on that very apt line, Simon, from Time Will Tell Theatre, we will bring this episode to a close. Another wonderful exploration of people and events and organisations and skills and talents behind the wonderful Jorvik Viking Festival. And that's why you're all legends, hence the name. So thank you very much, Simon. Thank you very much, Kathy. I wish you both and the rest of the whole cast and crew of Time Will Tell Theatre best of luck in all your performances, whatever time era they're representing in any of your locations around the UK. Viewers and listeners, I'll be putting the link down below to the YouTube performance of their Sword of Tyrfing and the audio recording of the Yggdrasil show from 2024. And of course, coming up, we have other guests lined up for the Legends of Jorvik series. We've got a wonderful illustrator called Katie Smith from York Archaeology, who designed the one and only Jorvik Top Trumps card set. We have Jason Buck, a storyteller who told some fascinating folklore set in Iceland and other Nordic tales at the festival as well. And we also have our regular content of Valhalla Conversations, episode 15, featuring Emma Thompson from the University of Leicester, Luca Panaro from the University of Iceland, and we will be discussing the Norse influence, not just on tabletop games, but on pewter games and the lovely crossover in between. So I do hope you can join me again on the channels, on whatever platform you're listening or watching to. So please hit subscribe so you can catch up, because there's lots more to come. Thank you again, Simon and Kathy. It's been wonderful talking to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.